Ritu, thanks very much for joining us there. As Ritu was pointing out there, in a sense, really an appraisal exercise. The ministry is coming out and saying this is what we intend doing. The larger question was, how do you intend getting all of this done over the next 12 months? That continues to be unanswered, and that's perhaps the reason for disappointment this evening. To discuss the implications of what went on, we're joined now by SHANKAR of ICRIER and VINAYak CHATTERJEE of the Confederation of Indian Industry, a man who's been tracking infrastructure for many, many years. For their perspective, appreciate you joining us here in India Business Hour. Dr. SHANKAR, let me start by asking you, what are you really expecting from this meeting? Because if your expectations and the outcome were not aligned, then there is a cause for you to be disappointed. Are you disappointed because the specifics we didn't see very much? We just saw a laundry list of new projects that the government is going to talk about, or the government has already talked about. Not much by way of how they intend to get any of this done.
I think so, Shalene. I think, the situation is grave enough economically in the country that at this stage one was looking for some specifics. Whether this be in the field of project implementation where they are stuck and you need debottlenecking, or whether this be in the question of the fiscal deficit. One would be thinking of some action on price adjustments for diesel, LPG, fertilizer, that sort of thing, or whether it would be some signal to investors by, for example, suspending, bringing in the anti-avoidance rules, which now are going to be introduced as part of the DTC, or some announcement on, reform in FDI or whatever.
But to be fair, Dr. SHANKAR, this was meant to be an appraisal of the infrastructure ministries. That's what at least we were given to understand. So in that sense, he couldn't have the finance minister wasn't even present there. So perhaps he couldn't have talked about reforms and GAR and so on and so forth.
Okay, fair enough. But you can certainly, petroleum is part of infrastructure.
Sure.
So if they wanted to actually go ahead and do something, they could. But realistically, you can say that should be announced separately. It's fair enough. But the real point is that making a general statement at this stage of intent, and then saying, look, we'll get back to 9% growth at a time when growth has slipped from 9 to just over 5 in the course of a year. Leave something to be desired.
VINAYak CHATTERJEE, old wine in old bottle, long on new projects, short on specifics. Is that the big takeaway?
You're being very kind, Shereen.
Okay, I'm going to let you do better than me then.
I'm asking myself, now that I've had about 15-20 minutes to digest the outcome of the meeting, I'm asking myself, why was this meeting called and why was there so much hype around this meeting? What was the purpose? Because if I analyze the outcome that has reached the public space till now, I can actually put the outcome in 3 buckets. Bucket 1 is a general speech by the Prime Minister in his true economist style, saying infrastructure is important for the Indian economy, etc., etc. So that was bucket 1. Bucket 2 was a huge number of platitudes, and I'll read out some of them. Create conducive atmosphere, remove bottlenecks, act on multiple fronts, revive investment sentiment, urge ministries to go the extra mile, and avoid turf battles. That was bucket 2. So now that's not news for me, the market, or investor sentiment, or for infrastructure developers. So here are the first 2 buckets. Then the third bucket is a laundry list of some wishful new projects. Now, as Dr. Acharya rightly said, to gauge the current mood, which people have used the word anything from dismal to catastrophic, to see and gauge the mood of the nation, that some key line decisions and executive action is called for, I think the Prime Minister is out of touch with reality so far as the infrastructure sector is concerned. Huge number of are crying for attention, cash cycles are broken, sentiment is down. What's the point announcing a bunch of new projects?
Absolutely. Dr. SHANKAR Acharya, this is the issue that we've been talking about here on India Business Hour, that there seems to be a sense of denial almost as far as this government is concerned. There is no sense of urgency. As VINAYak CHATTERJEE was pointing out, this was the perfect time for you to come out and say, this is what we intend to get done, this is by when we intend to get done, these are the 5 or 6 or whatever the case may be projects that we're going to put our entire government's might behind. At the end of that, you heard about the Navi Mumbai project, you heard about the Varanasi project, you heard about projects that have still been stuck for the last several years, and this just turned out to be another economic report card or appraisal exercise.
Yes, you want me to comment? Or what do I say? No, listen, I mean, there is an element of, I don't know if denial is the word or disarray, but in a way this has been there for a disarray, certainly, for quite a long time. I mean, we've seen ministries operating at cross purposes without, anybody kind of hauling them up. I mean, look at the last budget. The two things that people remember from it, and remember that was only, the finance bill was only passed less than a month ago, are the retrospective taxation in various forms and the GAR, or the General Anti-Avoidance Rules, which were held in abeyance only for reintroduction as part of the DTC in the July session, the monsoon session. So, I mean, remember that budget was framed against a background of an economy which was already showing very substantial stress. I mean, the previous quarter's growth had already come down to 6.1. Inflation was still high. Balance of payments were clearly showing about a 4% current account deficit.
Right.
So, it's not just about denial today. I mean, I think
they've been in denial for a while. Dr. Shankaracharya, I just want to very quickly get your thoughts on the cabinet that's likely to take place tomorrow, and our sources suggest that the PFRDA bill is on the agenda and the government could actually look at 49% FDI cap for that. The bill doesn't specify a number, but it's said to be aligned to the insurance cap, and the finance minister himself, when they deferred taking a decision on the insurance bill, said, what's the point of 26, let's do 49. So the hope now is that both PFRDA and insurance could be 49. Do you see that as being a game changer in that sense from a revival of reform point of view?
I think from the point of view of sentiments, I think the insurance bill is probably more important. But frankly, I think far more important than these is either of these two bills that you mentioned is something like the FDI in retail. Yeah. Because finance is always a sort of indirect thing, and people kind of Aam Aadmi has difficulty relating to it, frankly. And whereas something like foreign investment being allowed into certain sectors, whether it's retail, I think would be an important one, multi-brand retail. Right. Or if you have a reform that's being pushed for the last, I don't know, almost 10 years now, that is the movement towards a time-bound movement towards GST, the Goods and Services Tax.
Absolutely. Vinayak Chatterjee, I'm going to give you the final word here. Clearly the disappointment is palpable now. What we were expecting to achieve from this meeting, we have not been able to see that outcome. Does this really change anything, as you were pointing out? Will it change investor sentiment today from a market point of view? The infrastructure stocks were clearly excited. Does this really change anything on the ground?
Frankly, not.
Well, that's the long and short of it. Doesn't change a thing. Vinayak Chatterjee, always candid. Dr. Shankaracharya, appreciate you joining us here on India Business Hour. Let's hope that this meeting will actually translate into some action. We'll actually see what the Prime Minister said in terms of breaking the logjam, of doing away with interministerial turf battles. We hope that some of that will actually translate into reality and break the infrastructure logjam. Or that $1 trillion dream is going to be just that, a dream, because the private sector does not want to participate in this sector. Sentiment is low. As Vinayak Chatterjee was pointing out, the investment cycle is broken. A lot more needs to be done at this point in time.